This is the online session. Since we have a lot of presentations on this session, I think we had better start. And the first presenter is myself. So let me share my screen. So the title of my presentation is Word Perception Errors of Children and Adults in Noise and Quiet. Very often, communication in real life is impeded by noise. And previous studies have shown that noise has a detrimental effect on speech intelligibility and language comprehension, and that children face greater difficulty recognizing and understanding speech in background noise. So when there is noise, people of all ages tend to make word recognition errors. So the current paper investigates the influence of noise on word recognition in adults and children, typically developing primary school children. And the main research questions are, is performance influenced by age, gender, noise, and word familiarity? And second, do word errors differ for adults versus children in terms of lexical properties? Error analysis is more informative than simple binary coding of responses as correct or incorrect. A coding of misperceptions could potentially reveal more about the nature of difficulties faced by the listener during speech recognition in adverse conditions. So a comparison between the target and the recognized word may help us realize the reasons behind a listener's perceptual and cognitive struggles to understand speech in noise. So for the methodology of this research, a corpus was made consisting of dissyllable words in Greek, set in the phrase, say the word. 250 were familiar words selected from the first grade primary school textbook, as primary school children would take part in the study, and 250 were low frequency words that were expected to be unfamiliar to children, which were selected from database Greeklex 2. For the production, one speaker was recorded. She was a female primary school teacher with no speech or hearing disorders. Regarding the noise that was selected, it was a two-talker noise because it has been documented that it is a greater obstacle in relation to other kinds of noise. Two female adult speakers were recorded separately reading two children's literature excerpts, and then the clean stimuli were mixed with the noise. But in order to set the right signal-to-noise ratio, a pilot study was conducted with two adults and two children to avoid floor or ceiling effects. So the pilot results showed that adults can be, the SNR for adults can be set at 2.5 and children at 7.5. So children were given an advantage so as not to have floor effects in noise. Regarding the perception experiment, participants had to be Greek native speakers of typical development with no speech or hearing disorders, and all participants underwent complete audiometric examination. 10 adults and 10 children who had just completed the first grade of primary school were recruited. Each listener was presented with 80 stimuli, 14 noise and 14 quiet, which were randomized, and they were presented as 65 dB SPL from a single loudspeaker placed directly in front of the listener at approximately 0.9 meters. So how was the scoring made? Correct responses had to exactly match the original word, and there were 1,600 items in total, which were analyzed using mixed effects model analysis of variance. The fixed factors were age, gender, noise, and familiarity, and the random factors also included in the study was in the model were participant and word. Regarding the error analysis was conducted on 256 items. And a comparison between the target word and recognized word was made on different levels. First of all, a phonemic level, which looked at the type of phonemic alteration and the position of this alteration. Semantic level, so we looked at the semantic alteration of the target word. Then also the word frequency, so we noted whether the recognized word had a higher or lower word frequency in relation to the target word. And finally, we had two distance measures that were employed to quantify how different the two words were. The first one is a more generic one, the Levenshtein distance, and the second one, a more specialized one, the PLD20 phonological distance. So the Levenshtein distance is a pairwise distance, so you compare one sequence to the other and get a single distance, whereas the phonological distance one has the first one at its core, but it also constitutes a summary statistic over the word's 20 nearest phonological neighbors in order to capture how clustered or isolated a word is in phonological space. So it's a measure of phonological neighborhood density. Here now you see the results for the score. So the statistical analysis showed that age and gender were not significant factors, but noise and familiarity were. Also, age by noise, noise by familiarity were significant interactions, as well as word as a random factor. Here in this panel, the left panel shows the quiet condition and the right panel shows the noise condition. The first two pairs are adult and child performance in familiar words, and the next pair, adult and child performance in unfamiliar words, and the same in noise. And we observed that both children and adults showed statistically significant worse performance in noise versus quiet, as expected. And they also showed worse performance in low versus highly familiar words in noise, but not in quiet. Regarding word errors, we saw something very interesting. Both groups achieved the same, or rather made the same amount of total errors, and unfamiliar words, errors in unfamiliar words were twice as many as in familiar words. So their performance was similar, but what happens with the rest of our measures? Here we're looking at phonemic alteration type. What you see here is blue is the substitutions, red omissions, yellow insertions, and green is a combination of two or more of other alterations. So you see that substitutions and a combination of alterations were observed more frequently in both age groups. Adults more often seem to make a combination of phonemic alterations, whereas children make more substitutions, especially in unfamiliar words. Here you see the position of phonemic alterations. The blue is in the first syllable, the error is in the first syllable. Red signifies the error is in the second syllable, yellow in both syllables, and green shows that the error was an extra syllable attached before or after the target word. And we see that in highly familiar words, adults tend to alter the second syllable more often, while in less familiar words, either the first or both syllables are altered, while children in more often, especially in words in low familiarity, alter the first syllable, and they tend a bit more to add extra syllables, a bit more than adults. Looking at semantic alteration now, the blue signifies that we have a similar meaning of the target and the recognized word. Red signifies alteration of the meaning, and yellow means that the error produced a non-existent word. We see that for both age groups, the recognized word is more often semantically different. So you see the red everywhere is different semantically than the target word. And adults seem to venture non-existent words less often than children, especially with unfamiliar words. We also looked at word frequency alteration. So now blue means that the word frequency is the same in both words. The red that the recognized word has a higher frequency of occurrence, the yellow the opposite, and the green corresponds to the non-existent or proper name words. So for both age groups, we see the recognized word has more often a higher word frequency. You see a lot of red here, especially in words with low familiarity. And the last two slides of results are about the distance. Here you see the Levenshtein distance. The blue corresponds to adults and the red to children. And we observe that for adults, the Levenshtein distance between target and recognized word tends to be higher than that of children. And that for both age groups, the distance, is higher for familiar than for unfamiliar words. Finally, PLD20, which focuses on phonological neighbors. Words with low PLD20 are in dense phonological neighborhoods, which means they have many similar words as neighbors, whereas words with PLD20 high show that they are sparse neighborhoods. And we see that for both age groups, PLD20 of the recognized word is higher than the target word. And the difference is more pronounced in children. So what does this all mean? And what are the main conclusions? Adult and child performance was similar. Well, they made exactly the same amount of mistakes. But why did this happen? Because children were given a 5 dB advantage. And children require higher SNR levels to reach adult performance, as also documented in the literature, and even more so for competing speech. We also observed that word recognition was lower for unfamiliar words in noise, but not in quiet for both age groups, and word familiarity played a significant role in many of our results. And this is very interesting because it has been underlined that non-words or later acquired words used as stimuli reveal important correlations between vocabulary size and speech noise recognition. Also, when struggling to recognize a word in noise, children do not hesitate to venture words that do not exist as compared with adults. And children's misconceptions are closer phonologically to the target word than adults. This finding has been also reported for younger versus older adults. And generally, children seem to be more bound to the actual sounds of the target word. Adults seem to pay more attention to meaning and to the frequency of occurrence of a word due to their linguistic experience and richer vocabulary. Finally, when struggling to recognize a word in noise, especially an unfamiliar one, both age groups go for words higher in frequency of occurrence. And this has been also documented in earlier studies. But children also seem to select words with far less phonological neighbors. Words with high PLD20 are recognized more accurately than low PLD20 words in noise. Thus, high PLD20 words offer children clearer retrieval targets when ambiguity is high. And for the future work, we intend to continue with low frequency and non-words as they reveal a lot of interesting interactions. Proceed with analyzing misconceptions at the phonetic level. Probably use sentences versus individual words to examine the role of context, and also different types of maskers, not only two-talker masker noise. And then by doing this, we can establish a developmental trajectory, look into the effect of aging as well, and clinical populations. This will help us provide useful insights to speech intelligibility enhancement research, and ultimately enhance our insight into the cognitive processes underlying our uniquely human ability to communicate through spoken language. Thank you for your attention. So our next speaker is Katerina Alandrovich-Slovacek, and she's going to present vocabulary diversity of reading materials at the beginning of primary school. So nice to follow after me, since I was talking about the obstacles that primary school children face in noise, especially in noisy schools. Okay.
So, okay, thank you very much for this opportunity that I can give you some experience and to present my results about vocabulary diversity in Croatian reading materials at the beginning of primary school. Okay, for our introduction, I just want to give you some researching or just some researches what made in Croatia with vocabulary of children. As you probably know, Croatian language is South Slavic language, and in Croatia it is official language, and 4.5 million speak this language. It is very small language, but we have a big aim to reach vocabulary in our schools for our children. And in this point of view, this research is connected with vocabulary with one project. The title of this project is Vocabulary Development of Young School-Age Children Through Innovative Aesthetic and Embodied Learning Methods. And the lead is Faculty of Teacher Education, University of Zagreb. Why this project and why this topic? Because in our schools we have, and kindergartens also, we have many people, many children that have a poor vocabulary in mother tongue, in Croatian language. They have communication difficulties. Very often they have specific language difficulties, and 35% of children in our primary schools from the age of 7 to the age of 14 have different communication difficulties. Because of that, this is very connected with they use a lack of words, numerous postcodes, using foreign languages, foreign words, and they have many mistakes on the level of syntax, of lexic, and many different difficulties. Here I just wanted to present how the process of learning and acquiring language is going. In Croatia, it is very important to put focus on phonological development, because we have many different phonemes, and the children in acquiring of language have problem with pronunciation sometimes. Here I just put some of examples. Also on morphological level, it is sometimes very hard to make and to know many different rules, and sometimes something what is in the mother tongue very hard. For example, in Croatian we have seven cases. We have 3 nouns and we have 2 singular and plural. Also we have many examples, many words that are not something what are in rules, something what is out of the rule, and it is very hard. Sometimes it is very hard for children. The Croatian is for them mother tongue, and very hard for children which mother tongue is not Croatian. Also on syntactical level, challenge is to make a sentence with predicate, subject, and other things. So this is our challenges because children in process of learning language have many problems with grammar, not development. This is just rules, grammar learning. On lexical level, what is the focus of this research? We have 10 different word types. In textbooks, in obligatory reading books, it is important that very often are nouns, verbs, adjectives, numerous, and more than 75% of vocabulary are nouns, verbs, and adjectives. Also, the children we measured that children at the age of 3 have, for example, 1,000 words in their mental vocabulary. At 4 years, it is 4,000, and at the start of primary school, that is the 7 year, is 10,000 different words. Some of them are neologisms, some of them are communiques. That means that they don't know meaning, and then that they are not. They don't know all meanings of some words. And something what we see on the lexical level, it is influences of other languages, especially of English as a lingua franca, but many other languages that are during the history had influence on Croatian language. Also, when we spoke about knowing vocabulary, we have to know that the vocabulary is very complex, and to have rich vocabulary, it means that you know word, that you know using this word, that you know grammar of this word, that you know orthographical, that is very complicated also in Croatian, that you know collocation of this word, pragmatic, and others. And researching are connected with that children during one school year learn 500 to 1,000 new words, and this build their vocabulary a lot, reading new texts, reading books, and in primary school the most influence have obligatory readings books and also textbooks. And something what is also very important and influence of the process of learning and developing vocabulary are extra linguistic factors. For example, first thing is media. For example, cartoons, computer games, television programs, also other languages. Also, this is family structure, education of parents, reading habits as going to the library, reading picture books, and learning other languages as institutional education and textbooks, as I said. And in this research, I would like to show you my researching in this project. In this research, I make content analysis of obligatory reading books in the first and the second grade of primary school, and also textbooks from the Croatian language as mother tongue, school subject, maths and science. And first, I wanted to see lexical diversity and density in the corpus of required reading for the first and the second grade, also in the textbooks, and to see syntactic structures and the sentences, and also to see the most frequent words in these corpuses. So one corpus are textbooks and one corpus are reading obligatory books. And now here you can see my results. First, these are the results about reading books in the first and the second grade. It is 6 stories, 3 from Brother Grimm and 3 from Andersen. This is obligatory in the first and the second grade. And here are number of lemmas, number of words, number of different words, lexical diversity, lexical density, and number of sentences. Something what I want to point out, this is the lexical diversity as a proportion of number of lemmas and number of words. It is not so big, and also lexical density is not so big. That means that many words are repeated during these books, and this is very good for reaching vocabulary, for build vocabulary, because when child read a book and these words are not a lot of words that are not very frequent, they can understand more and more. And it is important that children, when they read a book, about 90 to 95% words has to be something what they know. Also in textbooks, you can see also here the textbooks from the Croatian language, maths and science, also the same things. And when we spoke about lexical diversity and density, you can see that lexical diversity in textbooks is very low. It means that many words are repeating during the textbooks, because this is the starting of primary school, the starting of learning languages and other subjects. When we talk about sentences, here are the number of sentences in obligatory reading books and in textbooks. And something what is important for us, this is the number of words in sentences. The child in the first grade is 7 to 8 year, and in second grade, this is from 8 to 9 year. And it is the grade sentence that has a number of words in sentence is connected with their age. For the children who are 7, the number of words in his sentence is from the 6 to 8. So these sentences in books and also in textbooks have more words, but this is when we talk about different contexts, this is okay, a little bit higher, but okay. And here you can see the words, the most frequent 10 words in obligatory reading books and also in textbooks. This is in obligatory reading books. These are, for example, verb to be, verb want, or these are the main roles in the stories. For example, Snow White, or Queen, or Dwarf, or Mirror. And here we can see also the number 7. It is very, very often because of 7 dwarfs. Also in textbooks are verb to be, or verb to have, or verb to write, to know, want. It is more and more verbs in textbooks, because children learn how to write, how to spell, how to do something, and very often these verbs are in imperative. Also, here are nouns, sentence, exercise, verb, because they start with learning, writing, reading, and other skills. In the corpus of obligatory reading books, we have 48% words that comes just once, and in textbooks it's more, it's 52 words comes only once. So for conclusion of this research, we can conclude that reading materials and textbooks play a crucial role in a process of reaching vocabulary at the beginning of schooling. And a significant number of unfamiliar words that comes just once, it's big, and probably we have to make changes in this. And also it is important to analyze lexical complexity of materials for children, because sometimes if it is not appropriate for them, they don't have the success, and this is not good for their attitude to school, to Croatian language as a school subject and others. And something what is also very important, that the language of such material should be aligned with students' development linguistic abilities. And this is all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Katarina. It was very interesting to see the situation in the textbooks of your country. And I think that the next presenter is Noriko Matsumoto.
Yeah, yes, I'm here.
Hello.
Hello.
Would you like to present your work now?
Okay.
The title is The Role of Deixis in Multi-Verb Sequences in English.
So thank you for your kind introduction. My name is Noriko Matsumoto. I'm with Osaka Electrical Communication University in Japan. Today, I'm going to talk about multi-verb sequences in English. This is an overview. My presentation is in 5 main parts. First, I'll start with the definition of multi-verb sequence. Next, I'll propose one hypothesis. In part 3, to support the hypothesis, I'll explain features of irregular multi-verb sequences. After that, I'll show 2 constraints of irregular multi-verb sequences. I'll finish with a summary. I'll start by briefing explaining what a multi-verb sequence is. The term multi-verb sequence is defined as follows. There are 4 types of multi-verb sequences in English. The verb to verb, for example, like to sing. The verb plus ing, enjoy dancing. And verb to verb, verb and verb, come and join. And verb-verb sequences such as go get. The first verb throat is always single verb, and the second verb throat can be either a single verb or verb and verb phrase. The multi-verb sequence always lacks an intervening noun phrase between the first and second verbs. The notions regularity and irregularity play an important role in understanding the nature of multi-verb sequences. In the multi-verb sequences, regularities coexist with irregularities. Many previous studies have treated only regular multi-verb sequences. The multi-verb sequences which are regarded as regular are sentences from 1A to 1D. From a syntactic standpoint, the regular multi-verb sequence, as in 1, includes 2 verb phrases because of the existence of 2 verbs. This means that regular multi-verb sequence has a fully syntactic structure. In contrast, the previous studies have hardly treated irregular multi-verb sequences as shown in sentences from 2A and 2D. What is the differences between regular multiverb sequences as in 1 and irregular multiverb sequences as in 2? To answer this question, I'll propose one hypothesis. The hypothesis is that a irregular multiverb sequence does not include two verb phrases, despite the existence of two verbs. This means that the irregular multiverb sequence has a reduced structure rather than a fully syntactic structure, such as a multiverb sequence functions as a single verb phrase, despite the existence of two verbs. In this talk, to support this hypothesis, I'll focus on the features of irregular multiverb sequences. In the irregular multiverb sequences, the first verbs are limited to the deictic verbs come and go, plus for some cases run, sit, stand, start, try, and off. As shown in 2 and 3, the most distinctive feature is that only deictic verbs come and go can occur in all 4 types of multiverb sequences. Next, I'll show 2 constraints on the irregular multiverb sequences. One is the integrity constraint. As shown in sentence 4 to 7, no word or no phrase can be inserted between the first verb and the word following the first verb in the irregular multiverb sequence. This means the integrity or inseparability is always strong in the irregular multiverb sequence. From this, it is reasonable to state that such an irregular multiverb sequence functions as a single verb phrase despite the existence of two verbs. Viewing the integrity constraint from the opposite side, as shown in sentences from 8 to 11, a word or more than one word can be inserted between the first verb and the word following the first verb in the regular multiverb sequence. This means the integrity or inseparability is always weak in the regular multiverb sequence, because the regular multiverb sequence involves two verb phrases. The integrity constraint is never imposed on the regular multiverb sequence. The second constraint is the subject constraint. As shown in 2, the first and second verbs in the irregular multiverb sequence share the same subject. As mentioned above, the reason why the irregular multiverb sequence shares the same subject is closely related to the integrity constraint. In other words, there are no thoughts expressing the subject of the second verb, because the integrity or inseparability is always strong in the irregular multiverb sequence. From this, it is fair to state that the irregular multiverb sequence functions like one verb phrase despite the existence of two verbs. By contrast, viewing subject constraint from the opposite side, the first and second verbs do not always share the same subject. As shown in sentences from 12 to 14, the subject constraint is not relevant to the regular multiverb sequence. For example, in 12, the subject of second verb is generic, distinct from the subject of the main clause. In 13 and 14, the subject of the second verb is inserted between the first and the second verbs, because the integrity or inseparability is always weak in regular multi-verb sequences. This is the last slide. I'd like to finish a summary. I have shown the multi-verb sequences has two types: regular multi-verb sequence as a fully syntactic structure, and the irregular multi-verb sequence as reduced structure. I have also shown that I have also shown what important features both regular and irregular multi-verb sequences have. The most distinctive feature is the first verbs in irregular multi-verb sequences are limited to deictic verbs come and go. Only come and go can occur in all four types of multi-verb sequences. From the discussion here today, it is clear that irregular multi-verb sequences as well as regular multi-verb sequences are a normal part of the English language, and the deixis is significantly related to irregular multi-verb sequences. I hope that you have found this presentation interesting. Thank you for your kind attention. I would be glad to try to answer any question you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Noriko. I certainly learned a lot about deixis and irregular verbs.
Thank you.
Thank
So it's
you.
group dynamics and growth mindset in Japanese EFL.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So now I'm going to start my presentation. My presentation is presentation number 5, and the title is Growth Mindset and Group Dynamics in Japanese EFL Setting. I'm from the Graduate School of International Culture and Communication Studies in Waseda University in Japan, and my name is Momoko Kazaki. Thank you. So I'm going to start. So my presentation is an empirical study which explores the role of group dynamics as a growth mindset intervention in a Japanese English for foreign language setting, with a particular focus on the fostering cooperative learning among the peers. I'm going to describe in detail further in my presentation, but briefly speaking, the study was conducted with a multimodal discourse analysis, and it examined the influence of growth mindset on students' behavior in the classroom. I'm going to start. So next, if I can change my slides, that's another thing. Let's see this one. Okay, this is my outline. I'm going to go slide by slide and talk about this. Next. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the background of this study. Approximately, according to the Japanese government report in 2021, approximately 80% of the undergraduates in the Japanese university enter upon graduation, they enter the business sector. But the majority of the people said that Japanese universities, foreign language education, to be honest, didn't really help because they tend to be grammar centered, as always. And then this has been a big issue constantly in the Japanese EFL context. So my goal in this study was to think about how to foster integrative real-life English that would help out the students to prepare themselves for communication skills. And in this study, I wanted to mainly focus on the mindset, group dynamics, and communicative competence. I'm briefly explaining about the theoretical frameworks in the presentation. So as I told everybody right now, mindset theory, which was coined by Dweck in 2007, differentiated between the two mindsets. One is fixed mindset and the other one is growth mindset, which mindset itself means how you can perceive or how do you think, you believe the intelligence is malleable or not. A growth mindset person thinks and believes that even if you are not really good right now, you can change and you can improve your abilities. And the other one, fixed mindset person will be thinking, well, I cannot do it now, so I might not be able to do it even in the future. And then that cycle goes. Some of the people, Lou and the other colleagues in 2022, described that this mindset theory goes along and then creates this mindset system along with goal oriented or the emotion responses and so on, which does create an entire system which works together. Also, I wanted to investigate about the group dynamics theory, which was by Dornier and Murphy in 2003. They said that when there is a group, particularly in education, a classroom setting, there are many different students who learn together. So when they start a classroom, the early stage, the development stage, and then the final stage would make a big difference how they communicate and do a conversation within the classroom. So the exposed time or their social comparison within or between the students might influence the whole mindset of the students. And finally, the last piece of this framework is communicative competence. I won't go in detail because communicative competence is a big part in the field. But basically, in this study, I wanted to focus that grammatical, social linguistic, discourse, strategic competence, all these components are really important, which consist the entire communicative competence. And also, part of this communicative competence is that modern day English classrooms are kind of transitioning from the traditional classroom to more so computer assisted classrooms. I'm saying computer assisted classroom because there are already computers or mobile devices within the classroom, and then we cannot avoid those influences. So I wanted to investigate that, including them in terms of multimodal communication. So basically, this is the diagram how and what I wanted to investigate. So mindset theory in the beginning of the class, in the early stage of the conversation within classroom, and a later stage of how that mindset kind of develops throughout the process of the communication and interaction between the students within the class. And some of the components are, as I mentioned over here, the stages and the social comparison and communication patterns. These are my research questions. Do growth mindset goals and emotional responses changes over time? Do growth mindset goals and emotional responses change through social comparison? Number 3, which modes are prominent in students involved in group dynamics? Number 4, what communicative competencies are prominent in students involved in group dynamics? The methodology. Participants were 64 first-year undergrad students in the Faculty of Law in a Japanese school, which they had a C4 level of English from A2 to B1, and they did learn and study English for several years. And I kind of mentioned over here, this was the classroom setting, and we collected data from 2 classes. So this is the procedure. So basically what I did is a mixed method approach. First of all, I did a pre-survey in the beginning to explore their early initiative mindset, and then later a post-survey to collect their post mindset after this group dynamics development. Within each session, I also recorded 15 minutes discussions between the students within the classroom. They talked between each other in English. Well, I asked them to try to speak and communicate in English. I did also collected data, audio data and visual data, which will be a supplementary data along with all these surveys. So now I'm going to the results. This is a descriptive data of the questionnaire. I have several variables. I'm not going in that much in detail because I don't have that much time. But basically, mindset and all the other variables were scaled with the Likert scale of 5 components, which the majority of the scores were quite high, except of the achievement of the goals, or, for instance, the one that scored the highest was the social comparison, which means that they compared each other a lot while they were exposed to conversation with the other people. And so out of 64 students that I looked, there was this issue, or the limitation of this study is that first of all, I wanted to do a pre and post data analysis of how that mindset developed throughout the process. But because I could trace back to individuals for only 14 participants, 64 out of 14. That was 14 was the sample size for the development part. According to the paired t-test, I couldn't find any statistical significance for the development of the mindset. However, in MANOVA, in the statistical test of MANOVA, I could analyze 64 students, all of the 64 students, and I could find a relation between mindset, their mastery goal, and their persistence. And this is very small, but basically, this is the qualitative data that I collected within the classroom. Again, I'm not going that much in detail, but this diagram shows each of the early stage, development stage, final stage of their conversation throughout the process of a conversation. And what I did over here is that I wanted to see how each of the students tried to communicate with the other peer. So for instance, some people in the beginning, they try to use, or they had a frequent use of L1, in this case, Japanese, and L2, which is English in this case, with a lot of handwritten notes and all the other PC screens trying to communicate, but with the help of some technological appliances. Along the process, they gradually shifted toward code switching. They tried to translanguage between each other whatever they had at their tools. But in the end, they moderately went back again to speak and trying to communicate in Japanese. So there was this transition and shift all over again. But the more they try to express their opinions or comments, they tried to use English and also some nonverbal, in this case, like gestures as well, which is not really typical for a Japanese learner of English to do so. And finally, so I'm going to do a quick summary of the results based on connected to the research questions. So the first research question was that asked, do growth mindset goals and emotional responses change over time? No, at least in this study, because I couldn't find any statistical significance based on my participants, but maybe this is because I had really limited number of sample size, which I suppose I thought I wanted to have 64, but I ended up with only 15. And then the next one is, do growth mindset goals and emotional responses change through social comparison? In this study, yes. And then according to the statistical analysis that I did, mindset and their goals and persistence had significance, which I'm going to discuss a little bit in detail later on. And number 3, which modes are prominent? Visual modes was prominent. They were asking in Japanese and English. They wrote notes in English and Japanese, and mostly used English as their linguistic communication strategy. And finally, what communicative competence are prominent among students involved in group dynamics? They try to communicate through social linguistic discourse and use the strategic competence to communicate between each other. So basically, I'm going to now show some of the key points. My study actually highlighted the correlation between mindset, goals, and persistence. Especially the correlation was plausible when a person or a student wanted to improve their English. They had a personal, not a goal that was imposed extrinsically, but a goal, a personal goal. If they had a personal goal, they seem to be much more motivated and confront social comparison, even if maybe that student was not really proficient in the beginning, but they tried to improve their English communication along the process. And then number 2, this was an interesting part, but based on the classroom observation, some of the students used a lot of frequent times of translators. We did have PCs in the classroom, so some people used screens PCs, and then some people looked in their smartphone for some of the vocabularies. Well, this was prominent between growth mindset students. And while the fixed mindset students didn't really use these technologies, however, the most interesting part was that growth mindset students who use technology consulted more into technology, and then they didn't really ask their peers in their conversation whatever they couldn't really find or they couldn't really understand. While the fixed mindset students, although they didn't use technology as much compared to the growth mindset students, they tried to communicate with the other peers and trying to figure out what they were missing in the English communication. So finally, this is my conclusion. The takeaway message of this study is this, or there are 2 of them. So number 1, in terms of Japanese context, Japanese EFL context, to develop practical English use, integrative language learning and fostering the development of communicative competence shall be emphasized when considered learning and teaching. And number 2, future research should approach different population, not only I would say I mentioned over here Japanese learners beyond a single university, but it can be different university, not specifically only Japanese, but in different context. And in terms of assessment, other people could assess criterias based on CAF framework, complexity, accuracy, and fluency, to evaluate the discourse analysis much more quantitatively. These are the key references that I brought up in this presentation: growth mindset, group dynamics, communicative competence, and computer-assisted language learning, mobile-assisted language learning artifacts. Yes, and finally, I would like to mention the acknowledgement part, because I wanted to really thank my former professor in my master's years, which helped me to complete this presentation, which come from the master thesis presentation, Dr. Stockwell. And then my current professor, supervisor, Professor Dute, who is helping me throughout the process of my my PhD study. And finally, I could not be more grateful for my university and then I'm glad to be able to participate in this conference.
Thank you, Momoko.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. So, Zhuyi,
Hi.
hello.
Hello.
How are
May
you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. So, are you ready to present your work?
Yes, I'm ready.
Can you share your screen and present Rethinking English-Only Classrooms, Exploring the Impact of Translanguaging in English Majors in Chinese Universities? So that the two topics are about English. Okay, so.
Yeah. I'm going to share the screen. Okay, now can you see my screen?
We
Yes.
can, yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I'll start. Okay, hello everyone. I'm so glad to present here. This is my topic, Rethinking English-Only Classrooms, Exploring the Impact of Translanguaging on English Majors in Chinese University. Actually, we did a case study. And the authors are, the first one is me, and another one, we all have the same contribution, Shen Jiaxin. Due to the time difference, she's working now. Okay, this is my outline. First, I'm going to talk about the background and theoretical framework and about my research questions, the research method we use, and our findings. Last but not least is the conclusion and discussion. Okay, now let's see the background. So the problem we found in China, that is the English-only immersion classroom. This is the dominant pedagogical model in Chinese universities, but maybe not in secondary schools or primary schools. Maybe because the educators and the leaders think if we create the English-only immersion classrooms to university students, it's better for their English. However, it's only true for those whose English proficiency level is high. For those who have lower proficiency levels, they may have some difficulties. For example, they may have some difficulties in engagement. So because they cannot understand the 100% English classroom, so they may lose concentrate during the class. Also, 100% English classroom may increase their anxiety because they are afraid, oh, I cannot understand, but will I be picked to answer a question? So that is. And the context here, this study is based on a case study at a university, private university in China. Actually, it's where I'm teaching, where students are struggling in mandatory English-only classes. For example, after class, I will ask students, how do you feel? Some students will tell me, teacher, I prefer more Chinese because it's struggle for me to have 100% English class. So sometimes they resort to coping mechanics like using Chinese. So for example, when they do group discussion, they prefer to use Chinese to talk to their classmates, especially when they are all Chinese and their native language is Chinese, or to search on their phones to help them. And this is the theory we mainly focus on. It's about translanguaging. So about these two big names, Garcia and Wei, and adopt to their theory. In my case, translanguaging here refers to the strategy use of students' native language, that is Chinese, alongside English. So originally, Garcia and Wei pointed out that translanguaging means you can use every language that to facilitate to help you to learn the target language. Anyhow, in my case, all the students' first language is Chinese, and they start to learn English at about 10 years old, and that is their foreign language. Seldom of them have their second foreign language, but also in a very basic level. So in this context, only Mandarin can help them. Okay, so in this situation, it is proposed as a more flexible, inclusive, and effective pedagogical alternative. That's why we are going to negotiate translanguaging in Chinese classroom. And when we done the research, we found there are some experimental evidence to support us. For example, here, Chen in 2023, he or she found the translanguaging significantly enhanced students' comprehension of complex grammatical structures. That is one of the terms I'm going to research. And the second, here, these 4 researchers found translanguaging can foster functional language use and cultural engagement. So even though all of my students are Chinese, but they are from different cultures. So they have a little bit different cultural background. And last, Howard et al. In 2018, they did some research in the United States, where we know this is a very cultural diversity country, and maybe within a classroom, the students are from different cultural backgrounds. So here, translanguaging is widely acknowledged as an effective means of supporting dual language development and fostering cultural inclusivity. So these are the experimental evidence we found, also just a part of them. And based on the comprehensive analysis of translanguaging practice in China, actually is not so much, and international, this one is much more cases. And reveal here we have some critical gaps and existing in the literature. First, usually it lack of long-term impact, only focus on a short time. So originally in my research, we planned a 16 weeks research, but finally we only done 8 weeks due to the students' personal stuff. And then we found there's a lack of teacher action research, and that is about interdisciplinary integrity. And here are our research questions. First, to what extent does translanguaging impact students' mastery and application of grammatical knowledge? The first focus is on grammar. And second, how does translanguaging influence students' participation in fluency in oral classroom interactions? That is the second focus about their oral ability. And third, in what ways does translanguaging enhance the logical coherence and topical relevance of students' written work? That is about written. And to what effect does translanguaging have on students' confidence and motivation in language learning? Last but not least, what challenges and strategies emerge for teachers in implementing translanguaging in classroom practices? And this is our research method. First, we have done 2 circle action research, but as I mentioned before, originally we planned 4 circle. But after we finished the week 8, my student just said, "I'm sorry, teacher, I have to quit because I'm really struggling in prepare for the postgraduate exam because my target students are all seniors in university." So, and each circle of action research involves the stage of planning, implementation, observation, and reflection. And we use research mixed method. We have both quantitative and qualitative data. So for quantitative, we have grammar, vocabulary quizzes, scores to analyze, and the oral presentation scores. So I use t-test by SPSS to analyze. The result will be shown later. For quantitative data, we have teacher diaries that after every class, the teacher will write diaries about what she did and what she observed on the classroom. And classroom observation, I also invite 2 more teachers to visit my class and finally have a semi-structured interview to talk about their comments on translanguaging. These data were analyzed by my partner by using grounded theory. And here is my participants. We have a total 30 senior English majors. Their English proficiency level are from B1 to B2 level, and their teachers. Okay, so I'm going to show the findings. First, in circle 1, I mainly focus on 2 sections. First is grammar, and second is oral practice. Because the course I taught is comprehensive English, so it will include reading, speaking, reading, writing, and translation, and many aspects. So in the first circle, I only focus on grammar and oral practice. So in grammar, luckily, this is very success. And the target grammar is attributive clause. So at first, I did not use English to let them to explain the grammar rule, but I used Chinese because the purpose of this class is to let students know how to use the attributive clauses rather than let them to know the technical terms about grammar. So I use Chinese. Then I asked them to write to draw a mind map. Of course, they can use Mandarin to help them to have a review. So they did a good job, and finally they submit their work on time. And I choose one of the group's work randomly to show it on the blackboard and discuss with the whole class to modify some details, to correct some mistakes, and to show that there's something a good thing they can learn from their classmates. And this is very high effective. Then after this class, a quiz was conducted, and the results are very positive. You can see here, this is a test result. Most of the students got a really high score. Maybe Chinese super clear for them than English, even though they are seniors. And also here is another chart. We can say the grammar section improvement. First, improve the grammar understanding. And these are the so frequency and better comprehension of difficult points, and also establish grammar knowledge system. Second, focus is oral practice, but unfortunately, this one I feel I didn't done good job. So because the results show their presentations were poorly conducted. Most of the students just read from the slides word by word with a lot of mispronunciation, especially for some long words or the new words for them. And the lack of fluency seems that they didn't rehearse at all. And after I have an interview with a student, they told me because they are preparing for the post-entrance exam because they are seniors. So they really have little time to prepare for the presentation. That could be one of the reasons. Also, they didn't follow my structure. That is a language-specific instruction. I asked them to use Chinese to introduce Chinese cultures. They can use Chinese and Mandarin to explain many unique Chinese culture terms, and they're going to use English to introduce Western culture. But they didn't. They failed. They didn't do that. Some of them only use English, and some of them only use Chinese. That is not what I meant. So that is another result. Due to the time limit, I won't explain. And also, I interviewed the 2 visiting teachers in my class. I asked them about their opinions and comments on translanguaging, also about their impression. So the teacher, we found the teachers were largely unfamiliar with translanguaging, but they can see its potential. For example, I think none of them say I have used translanguaging before or I have heard translanguaging before. One of them even misunderstand translanguaging as translation. They thought they are the similar words, but actually not. And after they know the good results on the grammar quiz, they prize the grammar activities, but also note the failure of the oral presentation. They know the oral tasks were undermined by poor task understanding. So that maybe because students' attention was not focused on the instruction, only focused on their own stuff. And the power dynamics, obviously in some part in mainland China, the teacher and students, the relationship have a strong power dynamics, and where students are passive and fear making mistakes. So in the second circle, I made some improvement in oral practice. This one, student done much better. So this time, the topic about this theme is still about the culture. Topics were more cultural relevant. For example, that content is about healthcare system. So I asked them to compare Chinese and US healthcare system. And instructions were super clear because I took the lesson, I even wrote it on the blackboard, very clear. So the result improved significantly. Students follow the grammar rules as the language rules that I asked them to use Chinese to introduce Chinese part and English to introduce US part. And one group, even they are more creative, they have the interaction with their classmates. They pose a question and ask volunteers to answer. So they did much better than the first circle. Besides this, I also done a writing practice. So in the warming up activity, I found a bilingual video. This is a task that I asked students to watch it and give me a summary. But I found, interestingly, students were much more engaged with the content in their native language, that is Chinese. They prefer to watch the Chinese video. And for English video, after 1 minute, almost all students, well, they focus on their own stuff. They're writing something, maybe, or memorize some other words rather than focusing on my own video. So that is, and for writing practice, this time I also use translanguaging. I asked them, they can use Chinese for the brainstorming part and write outline in Chinese before writing in English. And this can help students to stay on the focus, on the topic and produce a more coherent essays. So the result is also kind of positive. So here, warm-up activity according to my observation, that is. And for the written task, so compared with English-only instructions in written task, I found in translanguaging, students, most of the students could avoid going off the topic. They can focus, they exactly know what is the main idea and what they should do, and reduce misunderstanding, maybe also because we've done it in Chinese, and decreased keyword misconception and increased convenience. Here is the conclusion. So overall, I have done 3 parts: grammar, oral, and written. So from the result, we can see translanguaging is a highly effective pedagogical tool that enhances comprehension, engagement, and confidence. So the strength is it's excellent for grammar and writing coherence, and it builds students confident by leveraging their full linguistic repertoire. For example, in the discussion part, if I allow them to use Chinese, most students would like to narrate their opinions, maybe because they are more confident in Chinese. And also I have challenges, especially in oral part. Oral proficiency requires careful task design and practice. For example, that could be the reason why I'm failure in the first circle. And a deeply rooted exam-oriented habits and lack of teacher training are significant barriers. Like from the semi-structured interview with the teachers, we found seldom teacher know translanguaging. Even though I'm from a big city, Qingdao, that is. So here is the limitation of my research. First, we have a really small sample size. We only have 30 students, and because they are all seniors, so they didn't cooperate with me after the week 8. And this is a short-term intervention, only 8 weeks. Next time, I prefer to choose maybe sophomores and to conduct a 16-week and full circle research action. And the lack of there is a lack of structured teacher training. Maybe if there are some opportunities, we can have some teacher training in translanguaging, since it is really useful, shows a positive result. So future directions, first one, we hope to conduct a long-term study on the impact of translanguaging, that is to prolong, do a longitudinal research. And think about integrate translanguaging with assessment systems. So far we have only done it during the class, and also explore it using the interdisciplinary context, because we only done it in English class. The content are all focused on English, like grammar, reading, writing. And we also think to develop comprehensive teacher training program. Okay, and here are just some of the key references. Of course, we have much more. And thank you. If you have any question, you're welcome to email me and my partner. We can discuss it.
Thank you.
That's all my
for
part.
this interesting presentation about translanguaging. So are you looking forward to implementing it for the oral fluency as well?
Yes, I think so. I hope I can do much better than this time.
And I hope that teachers over there are convinced. Do you think they valued your results?
For grammar part, they think it's really positive, but for the oral part, they don't think it's a good way.
Okay, so maybe more work needs to be done.
Yes, I
Okay.
think so.
Thank you so much. Yes, hello again after this short break. Anurag, hello. Are you ready for your presentation? The title is Beyond Transmission, Digital Vitality and Future of Brajab. Oh, sorry, I have to see that the word again.
Brajbhasha and Kumaoni, the two languages.
Yes, thank you. And
Languages.
Kumaoni in India's online landscape. So the floor is yours.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Anurag Mittal. The topic I'm going to present is Beyond Transmission, Digital Vitality and Future of Brajbhasha and Kumaoni in India's Landscape. Okay, so I'll start with a brief overview. Yes. So this study presents a comparative analysis of digital status of two less resourced Indo-Aryan languages, Brajbhasha and Kumaoni, focusing on their use, representation, and technical support in India's online and digital landscape. So an introduction to the study. This study, it addresses a critical shift in how we understand language health. Traditionally, the focus has been on classical metrics like intergenerational transmission and speaker count. However, today's languages worldwide must contend with the rapid digitization of society. This global reality, it means that a language's ability to sustain a presence in online and digital spaces is now an increasingly important indicator for its survival and relevance. It applies directly to languages like Brajbhasha and Kumaoni that possess an exceptionally rich heritage and oral traditions. The challenge is that this deep tradition doesn't guarantee digital sustenance. A language may be culturally very, very rich, but and have a large population base, but the language may still face persistent gaps in online presence and basic digital tools. Therefore, a systematic way is required to measure this dimension. So, a brief background to the languages. Both these languages are Indo-Aryan languages. They are less resourced languages. Brajbhasha is primarily spoken in the central part of North India. I also have a map. Yeah. So, the Brajbhasha is spoken in the central part of North India, while Kumaoni is the language in the Kumaon region, mountainous region in the state of Uttarakhand in North India only. As you can see on the map, their geographical distribution, it positions these languages distinctly within the larger Hindi belt of North India. Okay, yeah. So these languages, they carry an incredibly rich oral heritage. Historically, Brajbhasha was also a major literary language, particularly for devotional poetry in medieval centuries. However, in modern context, both these languages, they face contemporary challenges in sustaining themselves. This has also been because of the overwhelming presence of dominant languages. In India's multilingual landscape, Hindi functions as the official language of administration and education, and also the language of the media, particularly in North India. While English dominates the professional and formal digital domains, apart from being the global digital language. This means both these languages are consistently marginalized in formal and high status digital domains, forcing speakers to use Hindi or English as a default. This context of digital marginalization is precisely what makes this digital vitality study so crucial. So moving on to the aims and objectives. The primary objective of this study is to provide a structured and comparative assessment of the digital status of Brajbhasha and Kumaoni. This assessment moves beyond the traditional speaker count and generational transmission to understand their functional relevance online. The study further aims to evaluate their current digital standing across the three core DLVS dimensions, that is the capacity, presence in use, and performance. Further, it aims to identify and map the persistent gaps in institutional support and digital tools, challenging their growth. Further, through this process, this study also aims to establish a foundational framework that can be utilized to provide a guidance for similar digital vitality studies for other less resourced Indian languages. Moving on to the methodology. This study, it employed the Digital Language Vitality Scale, DLVS, by Siberia 2018 to assess vitality via 14 indicators across three core dimensions. First is the capacity, second presence in use, and third is performance. This framework was adapted for the low-resourced multilingual Indian context by simplifying performance indicators to focus on basic digital functionality rather than high-end commercial localization. Attempts such as incorporating questions and observations regarding the government services were given a bit more preference rather than the original indicators that relied more on global services. Further, for data collection, a hybrid strategy was used for methodological appropriateness. Firstly, it was community data and fieldwork. Data was collected via remote Google Form surveys. Apart from that, the data was also complemented by interviewer observation of the setting and connectivity that took place via individual fieldworks for both these languages. This measured actual use of social media and communication chats and messaging and community perception as well. Further, there was objective verification, all scores and inputs all scores and inputs were rigorously cross-checked against objective external research. This step was very crucial to counteract the subjective bias and also the overestimation that is very prevalent in community self-reports. Further, I also have the questionnaire that was administered to the community. This was the basic questionnaire. There were several follow-up questionnaires, and I have not mentioned the options that were presented with the questions, but there were like several tied options to that. Further, I will move to the analysis and the basic findings. So the first dimension was the digital capacity one. Then this analysis of digital capacity dimension, it reveals a critical baseline. Both these languages, they share the fundamental user potential with high literacy and connectivity. Okay, that has been reported and also observed that led to scoring at level 2 for both these languages. However, I must interpret the figures carefully. Brajbhasha showed a high perceived penetration of nearly 80%, reflecting a plains-based community. The area where Brajbhasha is spoken is primarily plains, the Gangetic Plains. Kumaoni's figure, on the other hand, a bit more realistic, 32%. Given the logistic challenges of the high mountainous geography, the Kumaon region is located within the Himalayan region. I view this lower figure as also as an indicator of a smaller and more delicate community base that has overcome physical constraints of geography, particularly. Crucially, both these languages, they face a universal technical bottleneck at level 1. This survey confirms over 67% of Dutch Bhasha. Okay. Yes, I haven't mentioned this exact percentage in this particular context. Okay. So around 2/3 of the speakers for both these languages, they rely on the Roman script or unverified Devanagari script for their language resource support. Around 76% of Dutch Bhasha and 67% of Kumaoni speakers. I remember that exactly. So they rely on Roman script or the unverified Devanagari scripts to input their languages. Further, this takeaway is that while both share the technical ceiling, Kumauni's identity and institutional structure will allow it a better leverage in existing and dedicated base. Yes. Further, the second dimension was digital presence and usage. The digital presence and use dimension is where the comparative divergence it gets like the clearest. I used the community reports on e-communication and social media to capture actual usage. As data shows, yes, there it is. As data shows, Braj Bhasha scores significantly higher across both e-communication and social media. This means a vast majority of Braj Bhasha speakers are using the language frequently in private messaging and public posts. It indicates powerful and high volume individual-driven activity. Sorry. Conversely, Kumauni scores level 3, with a large majority of speakers reportedly reporting rare or never use. However, I must interpret this through our framework. Braj Bhasha's high volume risk being fragmented and unsustainable. Kumauni's lower and more disciplined usage frequency is characterized of a community focused on collective and quality digital content. I can verify these claims by saying that for Braj Bhasha, usually the content that was available online was very, very local and individualistic. But for Kumauni, the content, even for content of entertainment, was had some kind of appeal that was even very, very relevant for the communities that are not people who are not from community of Kumauni speaking people. So there's quality digital content which aligns with stronger linguistic identity of the Kumauni community. This strength was less about volume rather than more about resilience and culture. Further, the third dimension was performance, digital performance particularly. It confirms the scale of the challenge but highlights the difference in resilience. Performance assesses a language's functional support particularly, which derives from questions regarding official services and advanced tools, advanced online and digital tools, for example, machine translation and advanced NLP tools. As this table shows, both languages scored low, confirming the institutional void for both these languages. For example, a large majority of speakers for both these languages report never having used automated translation tools or finding nil or limited amount of other official services. However, Kumauni scores slightly higher at level 3, while Braj Bhasha remains at level 2. This marginal lead is crucial. It reflects Kumauni's stronger collective identity. For example, the Kumaoni community in itself possess a very high vitality scores and language loyalty scores in comparison to Braj Bhasha. I was quite surprised to find a portal where you can learn Kumaoni online. Okay, the Kumaoni, if you look at the politics of these languages, the Kumaoni does not have the language status in India, but still there was a platform where you can learn Kumaoni online. For Braj Bhasha, no such platforms or even such awareness existed. So this gives track of finding digital vitality is not just about it's not just about institutional presence of high volume usage. It's also about how effectively a community converts its identity into actionable resilience. This leads to the final conclusion, actionable insights and future framework for this study. To conclude, this study finds both Braj Bhasha and Kumauni are constrained at a low emergent and high dormant level on the DLVS scale, demonstrating the technical bottleneck is real and pervasive. While Braj Bhasha exhibits a higher individual usage frequency, Kumauni holds a stronger position due to its collective resilience and digital awareness, as well as significant institutional support from local government. The primary obstacle for both these languages is clear. There is a persistent void in formal language resources and institutional support. Yeah. Ultimately, this study serves not just as an assessment, but a foundational methodological guide. I have attempted to adapt the DSLV to provide a structured and verifiable framework for other less resource Indian languages. by like trying to focus on people-oriented services. Based on this, I propose two actionable insights focus on developing foundational digital tools and advocating for official digital access. This framework that I have kind of attempted is still a work in progress, and I welcome any suggestions and inputs to refine this methodology so that it can have a widespread application across less resourced South Asian languages. Yeah, I guess these are the references, and that is it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It was very interesting for me because in my country, there are many dialects which are under-resourced. Of course, for you, it's languages, although now there is a tendency for dialects themselves to be called separate languages. And I don't know
Yes,
if
yes, yes.
there are any questions. If there are no questions from anyone else, I would like to ask you something about
Yes.
something that is of interest to me. When you talk about digital presence, do you mean only text? Could it be, for example, oral resources like videos or audio? So do you
Yes. Yeah.
are you researching these their existence as well, or just written sources?
Okay. Thank you for the question. Before I answer this question, the earlier insight that you provided on the dialect, I want to comment a bit on that as well. Sorry. So, okay, I'll stop sharing. Yeah. So these two languages, I'm calling these languages Braj Bhasha and Kumaoni, but if you are aware of the Indo-Aryan politics of Indo-Aryan languages in India, these two languages are politically and socially considered as dialects of the behemoth of Hindi. So very, very recently only, these languages are begin to get in individual attention from linguists as independent languages apart from Hindi. So, but what is interesting is that these languages they have had a massive presence before Hindi as well. For example, Braj Bhasha used to be a major literary language around 400, 500 years ago. But today it is considered just as a dialect of Hindi and does not really have its own presence. So the question, the point you raised earlier about dialectal language, it is also very, very prevalent in my case scenario as well.
Yes,
Now, to
you
your
said it
question.
very correctly. It's a political decision after all. It's
Exactly.
linguistically they are all languages,
Yes, yes.
independent languages. Yes, okay. So yes, about the second one.
Yes. Yes, totally. It's not just about written text. When we see digital presence, we look at all resources. Like to the to the minimal level, we can look at the entertainment resources, but apart from that, educational resources as well. There was one particular factor in among the questionnaire, one particular question that looked at educational videos on YouTube and other platforms as well. For example, let's say we are looking at Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hotstar. Okay, if there is a very famous movie, for example, and if we go in the languages section, so there are only a very few number of languages that you can find it there, right? Even interestingly, I'm talking about Braj Bhasha and Kumaoni. Let's talk about Hindi. Even Hindi is not found on majority of such platforms. Hindi is spoken by in India around, let's say, 400, 500 million people. But on lots of platforms, even Hindi is not present. So even though there's a huge population base for Hindi as well, but when we look at its online presence, even in oral such even the Netflix and even YouTube videos, Hindi is largely behind. So yeah, that is also very, very crucial. Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. So yes, as a phonetician, I'm really interested in speech. That's why I asked this question.
Yes.
So digital presence is about oral resources as well. Okay, nice to know.
Yes.
I think we can start.
Yes. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the final part of the session. And my name is Castrenze Nigrelli. She's Martina Busetta from the University of Palermo. We are very glad to chair this session. And also, we would like to thank the organizing committee for this opportunity. So let's start with Kalilikia that talks about the role of linguistic input in language development among children with hearing loss and narrative review. So Kalilikia, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Sfakianaki, and this presentation is part of my work at the Circle Laboratory in the Department of Rehabilitation Sciences at the Cyprus University of Technology. Today we'll talk about the crucial role that linguistic input plays in the development of spoken language among children with hearing loss. This is based on a narrative review that brings together findings from several studies published over the last decade. To begin, we know that linguistic input is one of the most important factors for early language development in children with typical hearing. However, children with hearing loss, whether using hearing aids or cochlear implants, often do not receive the same quantity or quality of auditory input, which places them at a high risk for language delays. The aim is not only to summarize these findings, but also to critically reflect on them in order to understand what truly supports successful language outcomes for this population. We used a structured research question based on the PO model, which stands for population, exposure, and outcome. In this case, the population is children with hearing loss. The exposure is their access to language input, and the outcome is their spoken language development. The review follows the PRISMA framework, which is commonly used in the systematic reviews to ensure transparency and scientific rigor. So the central question is, what is the current role and impact of language input on the spoken language outcomes of children with hearing loss using hearing aids or cochlear implants? This focus allows us to explore not just whether language input matters, but how and under what conditions it influences language development. The review followed a narrative format, but it was conducted in a systematic and transparent way, as I already mentioned, using what's called the FRP approach, flexible, rigorous, and practical, as proposed by Sukhera et al. The literature search was carried out over a 2-month period from February to March 2025 using the PubMed database. We used a combination of search terms that focused on 3 main dimensions: linguistic input, both quantity and quality, population, children with hearing loss, including hard of hearing and deaf, and outcomes was the language development. We included peer-reviewed studies published between 2014 and 2024, focusing on children with hearing loss who use spoken language. Studies had to measure both language input and language outcomes and be available in English full text. We excluded reviews, editorials, lab-based studies, and any studies focusing on sign language, since the review strictly focuses on spoken language development in natural environments, like their homes or school settings. Sorry. To assess the quality of the included studies, we used the mixed methods appraisal tool. This tool allowed us to evaluate each study based on 5 criteria appropriate to its design. For the synthesis of findings, we followed the thematic synthesis framework, and the process involved line-by-line coding, grouping similar ideas, and developing broader themes and interpretations that go beyond individual study results. Here we show the study selection process based on Prisma. We included only high-quality empirical studies evaluated using the MAT tool. Most studies scored well across all domains, ensuring the findings were reliable and suitable for synthesis. The number of included studies was 7. This table summarizes the studies that met our inclusion criteria. As you can see, the studies vary in terms of publication year, participant age, hearing device used, such as hearing aids or cochlear implants, and the type of language input examined. Some focused specifically on quantity, like adult word counts or conversational turns, while others emphasized input quality, including responsiveness, complexity, and caregiver strategies. A few studies, such as those by Ambrose and Truer, looked at both dimensions. This diversity in focus allows us to examine how different aspects of input contribute to spoken language development across contexts and populations. This slide shows how each study was rated using the MAT tool. Most studies met 4 or 5 out of 5 criteria, showing good methodological quality. Overall, the evidence was strong enough to support reliable conclusions in the next stage of analysis. To begin the thematic synthesis, we followed the method proposed by Thomas and Harton. We applied line-by-line coding to the result sections of each included study. This allowed us to extract key ideas, patterns, and repeated concepts related to language input and outcomes. These initial codes formed the foundation for developing broader themes in the next steps. So after coding each study line by line, we grouped similar codes into broader descriptive themes following the method. Here you can see the 7 key themes that emerged from the data synthesis. These include factors like demographic and contextual moderators, like the age, maternal education, quantity and quality of input, such as how much input children receive and how complex or responsive it is. Device-specific sensitivities, where children with cochlear implants often showed greater sensitivity to input. Other themes relate to interaction styles, such as expansions and open-ended questions. Environmental influences, like the negative impact of electronic media. And the final category where no clear patterns were found across studies. These themes helped us organize the findings in a meaningful way and also allowed us to identify gaps and contradictions, which we'll discuss in the next slides. In this final stage of thematic synthesis, we moved beyond summarizing and began interpreting the patterns across studies. Using the themes we identified, we developed explanations and practical implications for language development in children with hearing loss. For example, the findings suggest that a high-quality input, not just more words, leads to better outcomes. Children with cochlear implants may benefit more from enriched environments early on, and that caregiver behavior and socio-contextual factors like education of parents significantly shape both the quality of input and child language skills. These insights help inform recommendations for both clinical practice and future research. This slide presents key themes that emerged from the thematic synthesis process. First, the interactional style of caregivers plays a crucial role in language development. Behaviors such as expansions, responsiveness, and using open-ended questions have been found to significantly support vocabulary growth and length of sentences. On the other hand, passive or non-responsive input like electronic media or overly directive language may actually hinder development by reducing meaningful conversational turns and turn-taking. And finally, we see that development is non-linear. Early exposure to high-quality input creates a strong foundation for more complex language skills, such as storytelling and literacy later in life. These findings align with the broader literature and reinforce the needs for intentional, rich, and responsive communication environments, especially in the early years on this population. One of the most consistent findings was that input quality matters more than quantity. Rich, responsive, and complex caregiver speech was a stronger predictor of language development than just the number of words heard. We also found that children with cochlear implants are especially sensitive to input quality, likely due to how auditory input is processed through the device. This suggests that a critical period post-implantation where enriched input can make a significant difference in language development. And finally, socioeconomic factors such as parental education and access to resources clearly shape both the quality of input and the child's language outcomes. Overall, these findings emphasize that language development is shaped by both biological and environmental factors. Building on the previous slide, the findings suggest that intervention should not focus only on increasing the amount of speech children hear. Instead, we should educate and coach caregivers to use high-quality language strategies, such as open-ended questions, expansions, and narrative elaboration to support language growth. Also, support should be tailored to the child's device. For example, children with cochlear implants may benefit from more intensive and enriched input immediately after activation. Reducing passive input like background noise, TV, or device uses, and encouraging turn-taking in daily routines can also improve both expressive and receptive skills. However, there are important gaps in the current literature. For instance, many studies do not assess linguistic input before device fitting, which may be a critical period. Also, aspects like speech clarity, articulation, and phonological richness are often overlooked, limiting our understanding of the acoustic phonetic features that may impact outcomes as well. To conclude, this review shows that high-quality caregiver input plays a central role in shaping language outcomes in children with hearing loss. The impact of input is not universal. It varies based on the child's characteristics, the type of hearing device, and socio-cultural context. This highlights that the need for personalized, flexible, and context-sensitive intervention strategies that go beyond general advice. Finally, more research is needed to explore how language input and families' input interact language outcomes. Before closing, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the Circle Laboratory at the Cyprus University of Technology. Their support both in research and in clinical innovation has been essential to promoting evidence-based practices in language development for children with hearing loss. And this work would not have been possible without their contribution. Thank you so much for your attention. And I'll be happy to take any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you so much for your interesting presentation, Kalikia Nicolaidou.
My pleasure.